YouTube is letting me know that I'm going live. The first, the My 2 cent life system. These are the base 10 clocks. All right, I'll show you on YouTube. Go. These are the base. This is the base 10 clock. So on the right is the My 2 cent clock, and on the left is the standard 12-hour clock. The My 2 cent clock has 10 hours, 100 minutes, and 100 seconds. It's a 10-hour day. Each day has it's a 10-hour day. Each day has 10 hours. Each hour has 100 minutes, and each minute has 100 seconds. I should also, one moment. I want to try to talk about the My 2 cent life system today. And I'm going to discuss a little bit of being a functional adult and working a job. So, okay. So, one of the things that I've said a couple times on my channel is I'm trying to desync myself from the standard way the world works. Basically, what's the best way to explain it in a way that won't be all over the place? Okay, so when we're born, the first thing we do is we are taught, modern first world country humans, we're taught to engage in the world based on certain rhythms, right? So there's 12 hours in a day. The day cycle, like if you I had it a really good position on how I wanted to say all this stuff, but now that I have to actually record, my brain don't want to work. The day cycle is 12 hours, right? And welcome to the stream. Okay, let's try this way. There's 24 hours in a day, right? And there's 365 days in a year, right? Is it? That's right. I'm pretty sure that's right. 365. Yeah. And then a leap year is 366 days, right? There's 360 degrees in the circle, right? Why? Why are these the values? What is the standard? There's how many weeks? A week has 7 days in it, right? There are 52 weeks in the year, right? Why are these the numbers? Why are these the values? Right? A month has 4 weeks. There's 31 days in a month. On average, there's 30 to 31 days in a month. But 1 week is 24. 1 week is 7 days. There's on average 4 weeks in a month, sometimes 5. 1 week has 7 days, and the average month is about 4 weeks on average. But we perceive the average month has been out on average 4 weeks, but there's only 7 days in a week, and 7 times 4 is 28. But there's 31 days in a month, and there's 24 hours in a day, and there's 365 days in a year. None of these numbers actually divide evenly into each other, but these are the rhythms we use, and it's this synchronization from nature that was deliberately designed by society that gives us the idea of humanity. Like the world is actually designed to create artificial rhythms that make us lose our alignment with nature on purpose. It's meant to do that. That's the whole goal. So you're desynchronized and you're out of synchron. You become out of sync with the natural rhythm of the world, and in doing that, they create this artificial idea of natural order within human society. There are when I designed the My Two Cent base 10 clock, I wasn't actually trying to build a base 10 clock. Hi, welcome to the stream. What I was trying to do was um, what I was trying to do was flat. This is crazy, but flat Earth. Flat Earth became like this really weird phenomenon about 20 years ago, and everyone just was on the internet, and it was just trending everywhere. Everyone was like, "The world is flat. The world is flat. The world is flat," and it's the reason why the world is flat. And I didn't think most people just be like, flat earthers are dumb or people are stupid, and I don't understand how you can believe the world is flat. I didn't do that. The thing that bothered me about the flat Earth movement was this need to tell you that science is wrong. Science is wrong. Scientists don't know everything. This is what they get wrong. And then use the same exact science that you said was wrong to try to validate your point about science. You said that the science is wrong and that scientists are wrong and that the way that they're doing the science is wrong. And then you use the same exact science to try to debunk or disprove the science, right? And I was fascinated by that because it's like, if you know this is wrong, if you believe that this information is not accurate, why do I have a crown with a number one looks like this? I don't know. I think the crown system is something that you can use to promote my channel, but I honestly don't know how it works. Maybe I'll do some research on it after this stream. Something about the way the new YouTube works. But it could also be if you're a reoccurring member. That could also be why you have a crown. But the science that they were doing to try to disprove that mainstream science is wrong was fascinating to me. And I realized that more than just misunderstanding the empirical data, there should be a science that we could use that is like outside of standardized science. The standards for science are standard because it helps us do things in a universal way, right? But science is not based on the science that was created, right? Like the values that was created for science doesn't limit the nature of science. It doesn't have to be the value that a scientist set. It just has to be an empirical unit that is consistently used for you to do science, right? So in that energy, I started thinking about the metric system and the American standardized system, right? Like we have 12 inches in a ruler, 1 foot, 3 feet in the yard. Like again, all these values are just meant to desynchronize us from nature and natural order. So I was wondering, like, well, what is the reason behind the metric system versus the standard American system? And interestingly enough, the main reason why the Americans use the standard system is so that you can have a more intuitive understanding of fractions, right? One half is one half. It's not a number. It's an idea. It's a formula for deriving a very specific unit, right? One half of 10 is 5. One half of 100 is 50, but it's still one half, right? And so the need to be able to use fractions and engage in irrational numbers it makes sense to have this system for a child to learn. There's 12 inches, there's an inch has eighths, and then sixteenths and 30 seconds and halves and quarters, right? Like I said again, with the idea of a clock having 12 hours, but then there's 60 seconds in a minute, and there's 60 minutes in an hour. And then when you divide an hour by four, that's a quarter, but it's 15 minutes. A quarter of an hour is 15 minutes, not 25. A quarter is one fourth. One fourth of 100 is 25. One fourth of 60 is 15. One fourth of 120 is 30, right? So when you're using these values and you're understanding the way things work in the world, we kind of indirectly get put into this system that we define as the human system, right? And those systems are meant to desynchronize you from the world. So as I was thinking about this, I was like, well, what if, because flat earthers need these values, they want to prove the world is flat, and they don't want to trust the established science because the established sciences are wrong and they're bad. Well, what if we had another system that had the same rigor as empirical units, but it wasn't standardized, and you could use it to test things and use those values that you're testing to validate or invalidate, because you can convert into and out of the standardized units of measurement. And from that, I created my 2 cent base 10 ruler. I call it the number line. And the rabbit hole of that led me down the path of questioning certain things like, why does a clock have 12 hours? And it's like, okay, if a clock has 12 hours and there's 360 degrees in a circle, why do we even use a circle to illustrate time? Like, why is the clock a circle, and why do these times rotate? Why do we use, when I started asking these kinds of questions and thinking about it critically, that's when I started realizing certain things. Like, there's 360 degrees in a circle because it's an arbitrary number, right? And they say that we use 360 degrees in a circle because 360 is a number that could be divided by a lot of units evenly, which sounds good on paper until you realize that we don't do that with degrees. We still get stupid, weird values. We don't go out of our way to make things simple. Society goes out of its way to make things as complicated as possible. So the idea that we use 360 degrees to make it easier doesn't explain why we make everything convoluted, right? It makes more sense for a circle to have 10 degrees than 360 degrees, because we use base 10 more than anything. People, because everyone's always like, well, base 10 is a hard system to use and it's difficult to understand. Is it difficult to use base 10 and understand base 10? Or do we have so many bases that we use all the time for different things that's why using base 10 seems to be more difficult, because we only use base 10 for money. That's really the only thing that we use base 10 for. Outside of using it for basic currency, we don't really use base 10 for a lot of other things. And if you think about the fact that the most important thing that we use base 10 for is currency, the most important number system we have in our society is currency. And the fact that we use base 10 for currency, doesn't that kind of illustrate the fact that maybe base 10 is the strongest mathematical unit to be using on a day-to-day basis, right? So I created the Michelson number line. So Michelson number line has a unit because units are arbitrary. And I knew that I wanted it to be base 10, but I didn't exactly understand how I wanted it to be base 10, because I was still trying to develop this idea into a concept. And I realized that I want something that can be used in a empirical way, objectively, but also fit into what has already been established. So I was trying to unify the metric system with the empirical system and create this new system that would be able to be exchanged between the two. And the more I studied like units and measurements and empirical units and played around with the idea, I settled on the my 2 cent inch. And the my 2 cent inch is exactly 4 centimeters. And the reasoning behind why I decided to make the my 2 cent standard unit 4 centimeters is because the centimeter is a pretty standard. Let me show you. Let me grab a ruler. So this ruler is in millimeters, right? So it's in millimeters. I'll show you on YouTube first. So from 10 to 40, those are millimeters. So this is 40 millimeters. So that 40, even though you see 40, it's actually 4, right? I'll show you over here on YouTube. So that 40 is actually 4, right? So where it becomes the my 2 cent system is the 4 centimeters is divided into 10 units. And so the my 2 cent inch is a base 10 unit of 1/10, right? 1/10 of 40 centimeters, which is 4 millimeters. And that gives me my foundational base. And the standard ruler is 40. The my 2 cent compass is actually about this big. It's exactly 40 centimeters. And this, if you see, this goes to 400. So this will be the exact standard length for the my 2 cent number line. What will be different is the way that the units are displayed, right? If you look at the standard for American inches, the my 2 cent ruler, the my 2 cent number line will look more like this, but it would be for this value. So imagine if this value here was subdivided by 10, right? So if this was subdivided by 10, that would give you the my 2 cent number line. And then there would be 10 of those ticks on this this would be divided into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? So that gave me the my 2 cent number line. And then from the my 2 cent number line, I was like, well, what about time? You need to be able to measure units with time. So what if what if I changed the numbers on the clock? What if I adjusted the clock time? And so the first thing I did was I created a 20-hour clock as I was trying to divide the values in. I remember it took about 4 months. Everything I'm about to say in like 5 or 10 minutes, probably more like 20 minutes because I like to rant. It took about 4 months of continuous thought and continuously thinking about it critically over and over again and going over the numbers and coming up with ideas and then understanding it and then breaking it down and reiterating. It took about 4 months to get to where I am right now. So I was like, well, what if I just do like a 20-hour clock? And I was like, and then if I do 20-hour clock, then I can do like the first 10 hours will be this, the second 10 hours will be that. And I was like, why is there a need? If I could just make it 20 hours, why not just make it 10 hours? And I kept fighting with the idea in my head and moving the numbers around on the clock and trying to line them with the time and the day. And then I was like, there's something off. There's something that I'm missing. So I started studying degrees in a circle. And I'm like, okay, there's 360 degrees in a circle and then 90 degrees in a right angle. And why is there 360 degrees in a circle? And so I kept asking, like, why is there 360 degrees in a circle? And I kept asking the question. I kept Googling it. And then the only conclusion I could come to was that was just a number that we decided. So I said, okay, if I change the 360 degrees to a circle into 10 degrees, what happens? So I literally drew a circle, chopped it up into 10 sections, and wrote 0 to 9 around the circle. And I looked at it and I was like, this is a clock. The first thing that came to my head was, this is a clock. And this clock can have 10 hours. Because it's 0 to 9, and this 0 is 10. This 0 is also 10. So this is a clock. I don't understand how this correlates to 24 hours for our day cycle, but this is a clock. And I was like, okay, so I'm gonna just use 10 hours for my clock. I got a 10-hour standard for my ruler, and now I have a 10-hour standard for my clock. And then my brain was like, this 10-hour clock is 10 degrees, which means your degrees are actually 10. Like they correlate. I was like, this is the relationship. There's 12 hours in a clock because you can divide 360 degrees evenly by the number 12. So there's the correlation. That's why they're designed that way. But we don't use 360 degrees for our time. Why not just use 360 degrees for our time? Like, why does it have to be an arbitrary number? So once I changed once I changed the clock to 10 degrees and I knew that I wanted to use a 10-degree clock, I had to align empirically what it meant for a day to have 10 hours in relationship to a physical, natural day cycle. And I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I thought about it. And I was like, okay, I know that the clock, the rotation of the clock, I kept thinking about analog clocks. And I'm like, I know that the hour hand goes around, the second hand goes around every 60 times. The second hand goes around 60 times, and that makes an hour. The hour hand goes around 60 times, and that makes it, the second hand goes around 60 times, that makes an hour. The hour hand goes around 24 times, and that makes a day. And then that's where the revolution came in, because I was like, well, it takes 2 rotations for the clock to be a 24-hour day. But on the my 2 cent clock, half a day is hour 5. And I realized, I was like, so you always know exactly what time of the day it is on the my 2 cent clock, but you have to look outside to determine what time of the day it is on a standard analog clock. So why do you even need a clock? And I realized, like, that's the way that they desynchronize you from nature, because you have to do the extra step. You can't just look at a clock to know what time it is. You have to look at a clock and then correlate that information with sunlight, or have an awareness of where the sun is in position in the sky. And you have to correlate those two together to be able to even know what time of day it is. But why do you need the extra step? Why do you need to look at a clock and then look at the sun? You should be able to just look at a clock and know what time it is. The my 2 cent clock, if it's 5 on the my 2 cent clock, you know that that's noon. Anything on the right side of the clock from 0 to 5 is going to be day, and anything on the left side of the clock from 5 to 9.99 is going to be night. You don't need to look outside to know what time it is. It's nice to be able to look outside and see the sun, but you shouldn't be looking outside at the sun just so that you can make sure that the time of the day that you need it to be is the correct time of the day, right? So that's pretty much how the clock correlated with time. The next issue was, well, there's 12 hours in a year, and there's 12 hours. We have 12 hours on our clock, and we have 12 months in a year. So what do I do about the 12 months in a year? How do I address that issue? So I was like, well, everything's supposed to be base 10, so there should be 10 months in a year. And this was really tricky, because I really wanted to unify the number for the year in all of these values. There's 28 days in February. The average month is 30 days. There's 31 days. And how do I make a 10-hour year? And how do I synchronize that with the rotation with the Earth? And like, how do I get the seasons to line up? And how do I get all this stuff to unify? And I was just like, okay, there's got to be a relationship that I can use. There's got to be some fundamental value. And the relationship that I found was 365. I was like, why is there 365 days in a year? It doesn't make any sense. There's 365 days. And this is a really fascinating idea, a very fundamental and very elegant idea about nature, right? Because let's go back to the standard system really quick so that I don't lose you. Because this is how I was able to synchronize the base 10 system to the standardized system. And this is very interesting to the rhythm of nature. We define a day by how many times, by how long it takes the Earth to rotate around its own axis, right? And we define a year by how long it takes the Earth to orbit the sun in relation to how many times the Earth rotates around its own axis, right? The Earth rotates one revolution per day, which we divide by 24 to get the hours of the standard day, right? The most interesting relationship in nature that we take for granted because of the way society teaches us information is that the earth rotates in an even relationship with the time it takes earth to move around the sun as an arbitrary value of speed in relation to this earth's distance from the sun. And what I mean is, because I know that went over your head, is that the earth is spinning in a circle, right? While it's moving around the sun, right? And the connection that I made was as the earth orbits the sun while it's also spinning, right? The relationship that I made was the earth is a hand on a clock, and the sun is the center of the clock. And as the earth rotates around the sun, this rotation is a calendar. This is the base 10 calendar. As the earth moves around the sun as a circle, it is a hand that is tracking its location in space. And every rotation around the sun is 1 year. And then since I've already taken all of the time to unify all of the base 10 math, it lined up. Because there's 365 days in a year, but there's 360 degrees in a circle. But they added the extra 5 days because it takes a certain amount of time for the earth to physically move around that circle. And there's no easy way to define the relationship of the earth's path around the sun with the relationship of the earth's rotation. And the fact that the earth spins at a rate that is almost exactly equal to the degrees in a circle is it's hard to put in words, but it's a very interesting relationship. The earth's rotation almost perfectly divides the cycle of its movement around the sun, almost perfectly even. So since I knew the relationship of 365, I divided 365 by 10, and I got that stupid random number. So I was like, okay, this number is driving me crazy. 360 divided by 10 is 360. How do I correlate the 5? What do I do with the extra 5 days? And then I realized there's 10 months, and half of 10 is 2. Half of 10 is 5. So if I divide 5 in half, if I divide 10 in half, I get 5. So I can assign the extra 5 days to 5 of the months. And so every odd month gets an extra day. Every month in the Michelson every month in the Michelson calendar gets 360 degrees. Every month on the Michelson calendar gets 36 days, right? That gives you 360 days. And then every odd month gets 1 extra day. Those 1 extra odd days gives you 365. And that lines the calendar up with the base 10 clock. So every odd month has 37 days. Every even month has 36 days. When you add all those together, you get 365 days. The leap year was tricky, and the easiest correlation I came up with that was I would just add the extra day to the beginning of the year as a day 0. So every 4 years, the first month of the Michelson calendar gets a day 0. And that pretty much was all of the units that I needed for my system. So I have a base 10 unit for measuring distance, and then I have a base 10 unit for measuring rotations in degrees in a circle, and I have a base 10 unit for measuring um, months in a year, and then that's divided into um, weeks. And I had to figure out what I was going to do for my weeks. So I said, you know what? Let's just use 9. Everything's base 10, let's just use 9. Because you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. And then at the end of 9, you start over and you go back to 10. So every week is exactly 9. And that correlates to the number line too. So it's easy to teach because there's 9 days in a week. And there will be 9 days on the ruler would have 9 units. The only tricky thing about my system is that my weeks are weird the way they line up. The numbers are very weird, but it's a system. Like it doesn't have to be perfect. There's other ways to address weird issues or to track information in a way that isn't super convoluted. So yeah, that's pretty much the foundation of my solar system. What happened later was when I was using the system and I was um, desynchronizing myself from the normal established way of thinking. People like to overcomplicate the idea of time and make it seem like it's this I don't want to say pseudoscience, but they want to make it seem they want to make time more than it is. All time is our awareness of progression through space. The fact that things can change their relationship with each other is how we define time. And time is just a unit of measurement for something that we indirectly experience. Right? I exist in space and I also exist in the temporal, which is what I call time. Temporal is the medium temporal is the medium that gives rise to time as an emergent measurable quantity. And it is the reason why things are able to move through space and experience the reality of the relationship of space-time. But it's not more complicated than that. And the way that we measure that value is important to how we do science and how we interact with each other, right? Like, we know that there is a past, we know that there's a future, and we always exist in the present. We don't know if the future physically exists as a medium that you can go to, or if the past physically exists as a medium that you can go back to. I am of the mind that there is a way to experience higher dimensions of time and space without violating laws of physics, but it requires you to no longer exist within this spectrum of frequency or phase of reality. You can transcend our three-dimensional perception with one dimension of time into a three-dimensional perception with two dimensions of time, and that would allow you to be able to see the past and the future at the same simultaneously. But being at that state would be its own space-time, right? You can experience the infinity of time in a quantifiable way based on the limitations of the human condition without being constrained in that structure, right? If I flip through this book, the pages turn one after another. But if you were able to see that experience at a higher spectrum, you would see the book like in a state of being open and closed all in one moment. But there has to exist a condition where I pick the book up and I move it into my hands. I open it, I flip through it, and then I put it back. Those other ticks have to exist for you to be able to experience that. Otherwise, all you would experience is the blurred, infinite spectrum of all things occurring simultaneously. So there has to be another unit for you to perceive the perception of that other value, right? Like let's say that humans experience time in seconds. Another entity might experience time as minutes and interact with our 60 seconds as an object, if that makes sense. Like the actual object of 60 seconds would be the object, and those ticks would be what you could interact with. The same way that the book is a physical entity comprised of matter in a state of uncertainty. The pages and stuff are literally like infinite cosmologies of matter. Like there's all these interactions taking place, but they're fixed inside of the book, right? So me flipping through the book at a higher level would just be that moment as a contained moment. Like the book is there, then there's another instance where the book is flayed, and there's another instance where I put the book back, and a higher dimensional being can probably interact with those discrete interactions. But that's a lot. Like we can go down that rabbit hole for a long time. What I would like to address before I go for my run is the Mitosin life system, because I've been saying it a lot. Like I'm working on this Mitosin life system, and I'm trying to build this Mitosin life system. What I want to do, or what I've been working toward, is over the years is this idea of a combining a personality assessment test with the zodiacs and an empirical based formal logic system that would help you be able to define yourself. I call it the idealized persona, into a structure that's designed for cooperation and social science of understanding yourself. So I know that there's 10 personas, and the 10 personas is not like you're this person or you're that person. These are the dominant traits of an individual, and you can step into and out of these different personas to establish who you are. And if you're trying to achieve a goal, this persona might be the best persona for you to achieve that goal. So you should move more toward this persona to define and establish yourself, to be able to be that person that you're trying to be. Or if you're more of this persona and you don't want to be this persona, these are the things about this persona that you need to adjust to either embody the best versions of this persona or to be able to step out of this persona. The biggest issue with personality assessment tests and zodiacs is that they only talk about positive attributes, and they only want to address they only want you to think of yourself as this beautiful creature. And the conflict is that people are shitty, people are assholes, the world is not perfect, and humans can be just as as great as it would be to be a good person. Being a person that is not the best version of who you are has some value in relation to our positions in society, right? Like it's not always necessary to be aggressive, but if you're a police officer and you're having to detain a suspect, then aggression becomes necessary. If you're a politician and you're trying to get a bill passed and nobody is taking you seriously, then sometimes aggression becomes necessary. Sometimes it's necessary to tell somebody to shut the fuck up. Sometimes in our experiences in life, we have to be able to do that. And it is always better to be a good, honest, decent, kind, respectful person. But there are moments in life where you can't always just be a good, honest, kind, decent, respectful person, right? The matrix and life system is about navigating that. Sometimes the people you're dealing with are assholes. Sometimes you have to tell an asshole that they're being an asshole. And if we don't do that, then they're going to think that their behavior is normal and acceptable. And you're weird because no one else is telling me that I'm an asshole because they're standing behind your back. Like, I don't understand why it's so hard for us to be functional adults to where we don't like somebody, but we don't communicate to them that we don't like them. We just gossip about it when they're not around and then laugh and smirk when they show up and think that somehow the fact that we didn't directly communicate how we feel to this person and this person doesn't have an awareness of our true feelings toward them, that that's a them problem. Like, you didn't give them the information that they need to know to be able to have that understanding, right? And that's what the Microsoft Life System is about. It's like you could sit down with the system and you can test and measure who you are and who you're trying to be without having to need outside validation from other people. I think that outside the validation from other people is important. And in science, we call it a peer review. But at the same time, people can just lie to you about who you are and what you're doing. You can show up and be, thanks for the response. You can show up and be an awesome thing. Like when I was working at Firestone, every day I would go. It's the same thing with the job that I have currently. It's like I'm always being told that it's not good enough and that it's not perfect and that you're making mistakes. It's like the capacity. Am I making a mistake or am I human? Because humans are not perfect. So am I making a mistake or am I just an imperfect, flawed person? Because being imperfect and being flawed is not a sentence to death. It's just being human. It doesn't mean anything. Like, the capacity by which we're not able to be perfect is why we are humans. Our inability to be perfect creatures is how we're able to experience the world and have experiences. That's why we apologize when we do things that we don't intend to do. If you're driving a car and you don't see a kid and the kid runs out in the middle of the street chasing after a ball and you hit them, it sucks and it's a bad experience, but it wasn't like you deliberately and intentionally went out of your way to run somebody over. You made a mistake. And because we make mistakes in our language, we have this thing that we call an apology for engaging in behavior that we don't actually intend. When we get results that we didn't intend to get in situations that are negative in relation to our understanding of how we interact with each other, we simply apologize. That is just how it's supposed to be. But for some reason, there's a small group of people that need validation and need to be told that they're great and that they're awesome and that they're the best and that they're perfect. And that validation that these people need should be given to them when they step up and prove that they are worthy of the validation. But for some reason in our society, we have moved into a space where people expect validation even though they didn't earn it. Right? That's the conflict. You didn't you want me to tell you that you did a great job cleaning the kitchen, but the kitchen is still dirty. You have to clean the kitchen first before I can validate you for cleaning the kitchen. And the biggest problem in society is when you clean kitchens, people will still come behind you and tell you that it's not clean enough, or that you didn't do a good job, or that you left a crumb over there, or that this didn't happen, or that didn't happen, and it's not necessary. Like, this manipulative need to try to take advantage of a person's desire to want to achieve goals and be valuable and be of service as a member of the human condition, being exploited by assholes that don't want to give validation when it is deserved and want to receive validation when it is not deserved, is the conflict. And it is in that conflict that I created the My 2 Cent Life System, or I'm in the process of making the My 2 Cent Life System. Because it doesn't make any sense that you do the same thing every day all the time, and then on one hand you're good, and then on the next hand you didn't change anything, but then you're being told that it's dumb. I work with this guy. His name was Man. I think he was some type of Oriental, Korean or Japan. I think he was Korean, but we work with this Hispanic guy, Bonito, and we were mixers. So man would run the kettle. He would put all of the like tapioca and all the honey and sugar and high fructose corn syrup and stuff in this kettle. He would warm it up and bring it to a certain temperature. Once it reached a certain temperature, I would dump 10-gallon like garbage cans of granola and nuts and stuff into these containers, and would put all this stuff in a mixer, and then he would open the kettle. He would open the kettle. The the slurry would flow into the granola, and then I would open and I would turn the mixer on, and these two giant mixing arms would mix it this way. And we would do this over and over and over again. Benito was the lead, and he would have to check and regulate the line, the temp. He would check the quality of the product as it's coming out of the mixer, because the mixing process has to be done in a certain way to get evenly and consistency for these granola bars, right? So Benito, he would be on the floor, me and Man would be in the kettle above me, and I'll be on the mixer, and then Benito would be on the floor on the line, and he'll be looking at the product and evaluating it and testing it and checking it and doing all of the stuff he would do. And he would call Man, because Benito was Hispanic and Man was, like I said, he was Korean, so their English wasn't perfect, but they would communicate in this broken English. And they'd be like, "Man, I forgot exactly what he would say, but he'd be like, it's too loose, or it's too thick," or he'll say like, "You need to fix it, you need to do this, you need to do that." And Man would be like, "Okay." He'd be like, "Is it good?" And he'd be like, "Yeah, it's good." Or he'd be like, "No, it's not good, you need to fix it." So he noticed that I was constantly adjusting based on what Benito was saying. He's like, "Paul." I was like, "What?" He's like, "When Benito say change, I don't change." I was like, "What?" He's like, "He say change, I don't change. He asked me, I change, I say I change." And I was confused. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. If he asked you to change it, you should fix it. He said, sometimes the mix is not good because it needs time to be good. If he say change it and I change it, it won't be good. And then if I ask him if it's good and I change it, he'll say no. Then I'll change it again and he'll say it's still not good. Then I'll change it again, he'll say it's still not good. So he say change, I say I change, it's good. If he tells me to change it and I tell him I changed it and I didn't change it, and then he tells me that it's good, then it was always good. So he just needs to tell me to change it so that he can think that it's better. So he say change, I don't change. He asks me if I changed, I tell him that I changed. If I tell him that I changed and I didn't change and he says it's still bad, then I change, because then I know it's not good. And it was super cool. It was a super weird and convoluted conversation, but doing the job, it made sense, because it's like, yeah, what we're doing is supposed to be the same. Like we shouldn't be changing it. We should be making the product based on the way the product is supposed to be made. His opinion about the product is less important than us doing our job the way we're supposed to do it. And if he thinks that, and if he's telling us that it's not to his standard, then that's okay if it's not to his standard. But the moment he tells us to change it, it will be bad because we will change it. So it's like, that makes sense. And that's like what I mean by like this belief system versus actually having these real values that actually translate to real fundamental understanding. And most people move around the world based on beliefs and religion and this alliance to this idea of God and Jesus. But the people that are in charge and running the country and in control, and these business professionals and all of these top tier, high wealth individuals, understand that social science is a thing, and social science is correct. And social science tells us about the nature of people, and you can get people to move in a certain way by assigning a certain social science to them. And even though you can't control their microscopic interactions and behaviors, you can always be in control of the macro emergent behavior of large groups of people, right? And that's why the world moves the way that it moves, because they understand the data. The biggest thing that's going on in society right now, what all of these corporations doing these weird things, is they have to update their understanding of social science. That's the reason why the guy with Tourette's said the N word and they didn't do anything, because they need to understand how are people going to behave or what's going to be the outcome. They have to test the data. They need the actual information to know what's going to actually occur. And that's pretty much what we're seeing. Um, the the idealized personas are hard for me to create because I've got to get it right. I don't want to make something that's super stereotypical, and I don't want to make something that's so open to interpretation that it doesn't feel rigorous. And I have so much going on in my life that it's really hard to get from where I am to where I'm trying to be. But I'm gonna just keep working on it. I'm gonna just keep pushing, because that's how I was able to make this, right? Like, you set a goal, you actualize on that goal, and you make a plan, and then you're able to achieve things like this. This book, I wrote this book when I was 19. I wrote the story when I was 19, and I spent about 10 years refining it to get it to this point. And it's not a lot, but it's super powerful to be able to just actually actualize your desires. Like, I wanted to produce, this book is not mine. This book is mine. I wrote the story. I wrote this story. I did all the work necessary to get it put into the proper format to be an actual book, and I got it published and printed, right? Like, it has a barcode. It's an actual published book. I am a published author. I've got multiple books that I've actually written and published. What I can't do is I can't overcome the adversities of dealing with day-to-day life in a society that is designed to make sure that I never get to a place where they have to compete against me. And that's the part that we typically forget or don't understand. The world is designed to make sure that you will absolutely fail. And the more energy you put into trying to be in compliance with a broken system, the more you will, and the more they will profit from you not trying to engage. The more you believe that you're better than the system and that you are above the rules of the system is designed to extract energy from that. They want you to bang your head against them. They want you to go against the machine, because you going against the machine is what actually puts energy into the machine. They've designed the machine so that they profit off of your antagonistic, disrespectful, argumentative behavior and energy. All of that unnecessary aggression is what drives them to stay in power. And being humble, being respectful, and being able to stay centered is how you are able to get back the energy that you need for yourself from a broken system. It's just like I went to Burger King and I wanted to get a chicken sandwich, and I went inside to order it, and the menu wasn't up. And I'm sitting there trying to order the sandwich, and I'm like, I want a chicken sandwich, but the menu is not up. And instead of the cashier like trying to do her job, she's like annoyed with me because I don't know what I want. And it's like, I know what I want, I just can't remember what it's called or what it looks like, because you're selling breakfast and you don't have access to the menu. And she's just being like unnecessarily difficult. And I just realized, like, I could put energy into her, or I could just get my sandwich and go home. I could argue with her and tell her that her customer service sucks, and she should try to do better. But I've been doing that for the last 20 years. I've got videos recording of me going into Burger King and screaming and yelling at people because they got terrible customer service and that they're stupid, and I don't have time for that. Let me just get this sandwich and then leave and go home. Like, it's not always necessary, but sometimes it is necessary. And being able to know when it's necessary to put your foot down, and being able to know when it's not necessary, and that this particular situation doesn't need energy, is something that you should navigate. It's not something that someone else should be telling you what you should and shouldn't do. It's something that you should navigate. You should be reacting to situations based on what is important for you to be the person you're trying to be. And you should be not reacting to situations for you to be the person that you want to be. And that is the goal of the Matrix and Life system. Apart from being able to create a system that would allow people to would allow us to be able to have a discourse with each other. I am very much pro relationships, pro marriage, pro making children, starting families. All that stuff to me makes sense and has value. Even if the generations coming up didn't get to experience the same world that I experienced, there's still value in those things. That's the reason why there's an indirect need to try to take advantage. Like the relation, like the exploitation of the man's desire to provide is not necessary. What's it saying? I value the time I get to spend ingesting, digesting it over, viewing, processing your sessions. I've always cherished our time, ebbs and flows, push and pulls, feeding and eating, pitching and hitting, pushing and heating. Minuscule example of evolution and technology, making it so we can be in the same room while hundreds of miles from each other is a minuscule example of the evolution technology has experienced. That being said, my process still experienced and abrupt when I hear you swear based on English definitions. Yeah, because this is my biological brother talking. He's not able to deal with me using profanity because I didn't start cussing until I was almost 35. I had to adapt to the army. You adapt or you go extinct. So I had to adapt to the army. I witnessed your production, scribing, creating so many stories through our times together, and my seizures inspired memories lost might be why this is where my understanding is, but I didn't know you have had stories published. I would love to hear the time and read them, and one day work on a project together. I have a poetry book published in middle school, and I have revised and edited many stories for people through my public schooling careers, and it would be a dream. It would be a dream becoming to create something with you. That is easily done. It's very difficult to. That's why I run it. Like the whole reason why I do the My 2 Cent Runday Nate is because when you okay, the human brain is comprised of neurons, right? This world wants us to believe that things are more complicated than they actually are. If the human mind is a computer comprised of neurons, and our thoughts are just the same energy that's in a computer, like RAM, right? Random access memory, the information is stored in zeros and ones and runs all these billions of processes to change and convert. If the brain is the same thing, then the brain stores our values as actual neurons, right? A memory is stored as a cluster of actual organic neurons. When you make decisions, you actually rewire your brain physically, right? So when you build habits, you actually structure your brain to have those habits. And to break a habit requires you to metabolize your own brain to deconstruct those neurons and reconstruct those pathways, right? And we don't think about it like that, but that's the way that it works. So every time you try to do something new, you have to be invested in the metabolization of changing your own physical structure of your own brain to create these new neurons or readapt old pathways to do something new. And It's not weird, it's not unusual, it's not crazy. It's just a matter of knowing that you are the thing that drives the car. You're not the car. You are the thing that drives the car. You are. Our brains create all of these random values that we can't control. Like that song is always playing in your head, and you're like, I don't want to hear that song. Like, why do I have to keep you listening to the same song over and over and over again? Once you reach a certain state of mind, even though you can never turn the radio off, you can change the station. You can change the song. You can make the voice be something different, even if you can't consistently and constantly control exactly what that difference is. You have that ability, and it's the micro steps. That's the reason why people are like, you should make your bed. Making your bed is not important. The capacity by which you are able to start something is important. A lot of people don't want to fail at not achieving an objective. So the best way to not fail at achieving an objective is to simply never start. But if you don't start anything, you're not living. You're just existing. You have to be able to actually put forth effort to start something and then be able to stop and come back to it later and continue. And that's the part of actualization that we don't ever get through because we got so many people watching us from outside of us and manipulating us and controlling us into not doing the things we want to do so they can indirectly gain because they don't want to do the things they don't want to. Like, you're not invested in the things that you want for yourself, but you want me to waste my energy to do things for you that you're not even interested in doing for yourself. Why? On top of, you don't even think that I can achieve the objective that you're assigning to me anyway. You're just asking me to do this thing for you because you don't have any confidence that I'll be successful and you want to watch me fail at it, but you yourself won't even do it. Like, that's the conflict. Like young people don't understand that that's what's going on. And so you spend all this time moving into these spaces when you're doing these things that don't make any sense when you're doing them or when you're engaged in them. But it's like this long term game that other people have to set you up to be something that they want you to fail at for no reason other than so that they can get indirect validation from your lack of success. But the thing that you have to do is you just have to just do that shit. Like, you just have to just get up and then just change that one pattern and then just keep changing that one pattern until that one pattern becomes the new pattern that you want. And if you fail at, well, I don't want to say fail, if you're not able to consistently change that one pattern, as long as you acknowledge that I was supposed to do this thing and I didn't do this thing that I was supposed to do, that's better than pretending like it wasn't even trivial, right? If you want to make your bed every day, like I run every day, I don't care about making my bed. If you want to make your bed every day, you have to get up and you have to make your bed every day. And if you want to change your sheets regularly, I do change my sheets regularly, then you have to be invested in the time required to wash your linen and put new linen on your bed, right? You have to be focused on all of that information and all that energy. So if you know that you're trying to do something like, I need to make my bed at this time, I need to clean my laundry at this time, I do this at this time. If you're in a relationship with somebody and at 3 o'clock you want to put your clothes in, you want to put your linen in the washer so that you can make your bed at 4 o'clock, when the person that you're living with sees your rhythm and sees your behavior and your pattern, and they go out of their way to disrupt your pattern, so they put their clothes in the washer at 3 o'clock, and you're like, well, why would you do your laundry at 3 o'clock? Because I usually do my laundry at 3 o'clock. That's the conflict, right? Because you're not being an asshole. It's like, you see what I'm doing. Why are you interfering with what I'm trying to do? Why do I even have to say something to you about you interfering with what I'm trying to do? And functional adults should be able to have that conversation. Like, hey, at 4 o'clock, I typically put my linen in the washer so that I could do my laundry. Is it possible that you could not use the washer at this time? And functional adults be like, oh, that's not a problem, that's fine. And then one day it's 4 o'clock and you don't put your clothes in the washer. They're not all upset and have animosity. Like, you said you was gonna do your clothes at 4 o'clock. It's 4 o'clock and you didn't wash your clothes today. And it's like, sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, it's not hard for that same person to come to you and be like, hey, I noticed that you're not using the washer and it's 4 o'clock. Is it okay if I do some laundry today? And then you can be like, yeah, I'm not going to use it today at this time like I usually do. So if you want to use it at this time, that's fine, right? That's being a functional adult. This idea, like, we're supposed to be always screaming at each other, we're always supposed to be yelling, we're always supposed to be compromising, we're always supposed to be sacrificing, we're always supposed to be giving more than we need. That's counterproductive. Like, it's not necessary. The whole reason why we created society and structure was to eliminate all of that crap. And the fact that we're not invested in reducing that stuff down because we're too childish and immature on a fundamental level and on a generalized level in society to want to elevate above that is the problem. And that's the reason why I'm creating the My 2 Cent life system. Because life's not hard. It's not difficult. It's not difficult to walk up to somebody and be like, hey, can you do this? Or hey, is this possible? Or is this okay? And just be able to do that shit. Like, the negative energy that it takes the same amount of energy to say please as it does to say do it now. It takes the same amount of energy to say thank you as it does to say I don't care, or like whatever. Like, all of the amount of energy that you invest in being negative is the same amount of energy and the same amount of calories it would be to invest to be positive. Like, people spend time and energy thinking about ways to be rude and disrespectful and argumentative and fight. People invest energy into coming up. Imagine the amount of energy it takes somebody to lie about something and to try to structure this entire story around getting away with doing something that they quote unquote shouldn't do as an adult, instead of just being direct about what they want to do, right? Like, you're in a relationship with a girl and you as the guy want to cheat on her, or she as the girl wants to cheat on you. Think about all the energy it takes to just not say, hey, I feel like I want to have sex with other people, right? Like, how much energy does it take to say that? And then you can, like, y'all can look at each other and be like, well, why do you feel this way? Why do you have these feelings? What can we do in our relationship about this situation? Right? Like, all these layers of unnecessary insecurities that are built on top of indirect experiences, so that two people can, because it's not like when you're dating somebody you don't find other people attractive. It's not like you're walking around with your girlfriend and all the other girls are somehow now just automatically ugly, right? So it's not even like this weird energy of the way the world functions, but we create all these unnecessary layers on top of all these unnecessary layers. For what? Like, for what? I understand nobody wants to be cheated on. I understand that nobody wants to be betrayed. I understand people have insecurities. But what I don't understand is, why do adults, why do people over the age of 18, 25, 30, 40, 45, 50, why do they still operate from the behavior of a 10-year-old? Like, why are you a 25-year-old person with the maturity level of a 10-year-old child? That's what I don't understand. Because there's always this talk about how older people shouldn't be dating younger people, but the real question is why are older people operating from a younger person's space, right? Like, the idea, like, young older guys shouldn't date younger girls, right? A 40-year-old man, like my wife is 30, a 40-year-old man don't have no reason to be dating a 30-year-old woman. Well, my my quote unquote current girlfriend, who was the woman I was trying to marry before I married my wife, is 9 years older than me. So if the woman that's 9 years older than me has the maturity level of a girl that is 10 years younger than me, why would I not date the girl that's 10 years younger than me That why would I not date the girl that's 9 years younger than me instead of the girl that's 9 years older than me if the maturity level of the girl that's 9 years younger than me is higher than the maturity of level of the woman that is 10 years older than me? Why would I not do that? Why would, because at the end of the day, the goal is to be in a functional relationship. And if you can find a emotionally mature person that's younger than you, and if a younger person is looking for an emotionally more mature person that just happens to be older than them, why would you not do that? If you can find somebody your own age that you share the same maturity level and the same compatibility with, then you should do that. But if you're trying to be a functional adult and you're looking for functional adults and they're over the age of 18, their age doesn't matter, especially since most women in their 20s, 30s, and 40s act like children anyway. And I'm not saying that they're acting like like babies, like 6 and 7 year olds. I'm saying like the capacity by which they govern themselves around is the same mental, cognitive thinking processes that you would expect from a child, right? Like you would expect the behavior that we accept of older women is the behavior that we see in children, right? And I'm not saying that we should be dating children because for some reason this world is just so obsessed with trying to accuse men of just like I'm not even trying to go in that energy. But what I'm saying is that the mental processes of younger people under the age of 18 is what we see in the mental processes of adults. Adults behave like children, and we expect children to be adults. And the maturity level that we expect of children is not the maturity level that we see in actual adults. Like the people we work with are not functional adults, but we expect actual children to be functional adults, if that makes sense. So, so that's kind of like what I'm trying to do with the My Two Semi system in an arbitrary, long-winded, convoluted way. So there's tons of other books coming. There's tons of other resources coming. The clock was I used ChatGPT to help me program the base 10 clock and the base 10 calendar. And there's tons of systems and stuff coming out. But I work full time, 4 hours a week. I'm still doing school. I'm currently behind in my studies right now, and I'm in a process of editing my second book. So yeah, I think that's basically it. I appreciate everybody that came to the stream, and I appreciate everybody that commented. But I've gotta get back to work. So as always, man, as I'm saying, I've given you my 2 cents. I gotta go do this run. I got an hour to get out there before I'm not successful. So I'm gonna copy all of the data so I can review it. And yeah, Nate, you're always welcome to come over. You're always loved. You're always supported. You're always appreciated. I don't hate nobody. Ain't nobody got time for all that hate and stuff, all that childish pettiness. I just am who I am, and you just gotta do the work, man. You gotta just do the work. You know I believe in you. You know I love you, and I'm always gonna accept you for who you are. So no, there is no hate. Oh, I can't do it that way.